Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this second day of the AEBR Annual Conference here in Trysil. I hope you all had a good night's sleep and that the mountain air has done you well. We are about to share a session on Nordic Cooperation and on the Nordic Border Committees. My name is Erik Hagen. I work here in the Innlandet County Council, and I had the privilege to participate for the first time at the AEBR Annual Conference back in 2003. That was, as some of you will remember, in Bohemia, in Karlovy Vary. And there is a person in this room who once famously stated, "Once you get thoroughly into cross-border cooperation, it will be very hard for you to ever get out." Or wasn't it, Sanda? So to any newcomers in the room, please consider this as a mild warning, or perhaps also kind of a promise. We're up to having a long day of different cross-border issues, and we will start now by shedding some light at the cross-border cooperation in the Nordic countries, and we also have a look at the Nordic countries more in general. Our panelists for this session are a blend of cross-border cooperation enthusiasts representing border institutions covering most of the 1,620 kilometers of border between Sweden and Norway. This is the longest land border in Europe next to Ukraine and Russia. Our first speaker will be Mr. Hans Peter Carlson. Hans Peter, or HP, as he is commonly known, lives in a small border town of Tärnaby in Lapland, in the region of Västerbotten in Sweden. He's been the director of the Nordic Border Committee MidtSkandia since 2019, and he genuinely shares the vision of the Nordic countries, which officially claims or aims at becoming the most integrated, the most sustainable region in the world by 2030. He's also a passionate skier. Next, we will hear from Mrs. Cecilia Nilsson. She is the managing director of the Svinesund Committee and has long experience working with regional development in the, by Scandinavian standards, large region of Västergötland with 1.7 million inhabitants. Cecilia was a member of the Swedish Parliament for 8 years. For the last 3 years, she's been living at the very border, the marine border, between Norway and Sweden. For our third speech, Mrs. Kikki Lindset and Mrs. Madelene Kutt, representing the Norwegian-Swedish Border Service. Kikki has been working there since 2003. She's responsible for border obstacles and simplification efforts. She deals with individual issues related to social security, work assessment allowance, parent benefits, child allowance, disability pensions, and more regarding both countries. Madelene, who is a returning employee, was involved when the employment services of Norway and Sweden launched their very first collaboration. This was back in 1997. Since 2021, she's been working at the Border Service again with matters concerning labor market, social security, disability pensions, professional authorization, and student loans in both countries. Finally, we will give the floor to a local hero. I think that's fair to say, Gro. As you live next by, and you've been a true champion of cross-border cooperation in this area for a long time, at least since 2006, I think. So if you're looking for a public sector entrepreneur, you don't need to look any further. Gro was working for 20 years as head of business department here in Trysil municipality, before she became the leader of the cross-border cooperation between Innlandet and Dalarna County back in 2021. And please mind, all our 5 panelists are through and through border dwellers, as all of them they are among the 1% of the population in their respective region that live closest to the physical border. Okay, before we proceed to the speakers, I'll remind you we're using Slido today as well, and we are making a word cloud here, so please have your say. You would also see that there are opening to make questions to the panel during the session, and we will bring up those questions at the debate at the end of this session. Okay, HP, HP, you're going to give us a short introduction to the Nordic countries and maybe also touch upon the notion of Nordicism. We are quite curious about that, so please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Erik, and good morning to everybody. I hope you had a good night's sleep, and as Erik said, that the mountain air here has made you all well. It has to me, actually. I came here with a bad cold, and I feel a lot better now. Being a skier and loving the mountains, I think that the air and the surroundings here have made me much more comfortable than I was when I came. So we're going to talk about Nordics and Nordicism for a short while here. I have 15 minutes to teach you all about the Nordic countries and their cooperation. So hold on to your hats and maybe put the safety belts on in your chairs, if there is any, and come on for the ride. We're going to give you a crash course on peace, hygge, and welfare. Those are the 3 most important ingredients to a successful and long-lasting cooperation partnership. And I'll prove that in just a few minutes. So, next slide, please. Or do I have one here? Perfect. I'll do it myself. This is me, not to be very much taken into account, but I'll get back to that later. So, to have a Nordic cooperation, we need Nordic countries, right? And what are those? Well, there are 5 of them. If we count nations, then we have autonomous territories, but let's not go into that. Say 5 countries. It's Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and, as you all know, Iceland. And this guy might represent 2 of those countries. In general, Norway and Iceland. I think if you watch the show, you know that they have twisted history a bit. But there were Vikings, like 1200 something years ago, and they looked a bit like that. They did not have horns, though, on their helmets. That's an American invention. So that's one part of the Nordics. This is another one. That's Zlatan. Yeah. He's a really Nordic symbol these days. And maybe a symbol for Sweden as well. Being what he is. Or was when he was at his prime. But he's a second-generation immigrant living in Malmö, growing up to be one of the greatest footballers on earth. That can be achieved in the Nordics. Probably the best of something in the world. Danish. Small country made out of, well, I will not cite the famous Swedish actor in a TV series from long ago, but it's a small country. We can agree on that. But that's the largest brewing corporation around now these days. Nokia, connecting people. Not so much these days, but formally and in people's minds, the overall #1 supplier of phones back in the day. Now more of networks and stuff like that. But high tech, high everything, right? So that might be the picture you have, but this is much more interesting. You know what this is? Any suggestions? Yeah. This is the world top 20 countries in the happiness index competition. And 5 of the top 7 are the 5 Nordic countries. Okay? I could rest my case here, but I will not. Let's go on. So that's one view of it, but we are also in the Nordics, 28 million people. We have democracies in our countries. Actually, Finland is on top of the Freedom House Democracy Index with a total score of 100, and 100 is what you relate to. So Finland is like, you know, Finland is the index right now. But all the other Nordic countries are in the top 10 of Freedom House's Democracy Index as of 2023. We'll see in early 25 when this year's index come. I hope that we will all be in the top 5. I suppose we will. We are high tax countries. If you check the Eurostat indices, we're about 41 to 49% tax effect in all the 5 countries, which means we are on the top on the world welfare list as well. Parent leaves, sick leaves, education, healthcare, dental care, schooling, free university education, minor stuff like that, right? That's what we do. And if we combine the 5 Nordic countries, we're among the top 12 largest economies in the world. If, as some suggest, we also include the 3 Baltic countries, that's an entity called NB8. We would be a top 7 economy. A G7 nation. Reflect on that for a second or two. So, that is what we are. How did we get there? This flag is the Danish flag. The Dannebrogen is considered to be the oldest nation flag in the world. It's been... Sorry? Well, that was not a nation flag in the beginning. But this, in all the sources I've been checking, and they are quite a few. This is supposed to be the oldest national symbol, not clan symbol, not family symbol, not monarch symbol, but national symbol. There are differences, right? And it's been going on like that ever since. And Denmark has been a country for a very, very long time. No, this doesn't work anymore. Yeah. So Vikings, we started out there, no horns. They were farmers mainly. They made small trips around the world and visited maybe some of your countries as well. Very friendly, I hope. But we started cooperating really, really early. And in the late 1300s, there was a Nordic Union formed at that time. It was called the Kalmar Union, and it went on until we got a Swedish king named Gustav in 1523. So we had quite a long time of a Nordic Union back in that day, and it was run by Queen Margaret. She was called King No Trousers, and she used to rule this quite firmly, as it were. Well, doesn't work now then. So, and at that time, Finland was actually a part of Sweden, just as Gothenburg or Stockholm is a part of Sweden, Finland was a part of Sweden. It wasn't considered to be something different than the other parts of Sweden. Trysil is a part of Norway, and Finland was a part of Sweden at that time. That was no strange thing. And Norway and Denmark were like married together for a very, very long time. They had the same king or queen. There were maybe different countries, but not really. And if you check the language and try to read a Norwegian book beside a Danish book, it's the same, almost. It doesn't sound like that when you hear it, though. Danish is really something that, well. So, from that very, very strong foundation of centuries of working together, we went to a period of, well, this is not really something to be proud of. Sweden was actually one of the largest countries in Europe at that time, and we lost it. We lost it when we fought for it, and we lost it really later. But actually, the 17th century with the Great European War, 18th century with lots of stupid Swedish kings fighting on everything, and then we lost Finland to not Putin, but some other Russian, really bad stuff. And we lost Norway as well, because Norway was in a union with Finland until 1905, and some of you were in Carlson the day before yesterday, and that's where the union ended, in 1905. And Finland was declared independent in 1917, and from that point on, the Nordics are as the Nordics are today. And then you know what happened during the 1900s, and we made a new start after 1945. And bear in mind, the state of the Nordic and of Europe in total in 1945, and what was needed and what was actually possible to do at that time. Now, in 1952, the Nordic Council was found. The Nordic Council is a parliament of members of parliament from the Nordic countries. So, since then, 70 plus years, we've been sending members of our own parliaments to, in this case, Copenhagen, to cooperate on Nordic matters. And we heard yesterday that we've been lifted from the burden of using passports in the Nordics. Yes, we have, since then. It's like Schengen, but better. And since 1954, we've had a single labor market. As a Nordic citizen, you can go to any other Nordic country and work for as long or short or whatever you want. Since, well, 70 years ago. I think that we're actually struggling on a European basis with a single labor market, but this has been working. Really, really good. And it's been extremely profitable for the Nordics. Since 1962, we've had the Helsinki agreements, deepening the cooperation and also regulating it a bit more, what shall we say, concrete framework. And then, this is really annoying. In 1971, the Nordic Council of Ministers were founded, and that is a governmental cooperation. So we have the parliament since 1952, and then we have a governmental cooperation of ministers since 1971. And they work on all different topics. Then something really interesting happened. In 2020, for the first time since World War II, we had armored military personnel on our Norwegian borders, closing them The Swedish-Norwegian border was closed for more than 650 days during the pandemic. And as Erik said, we all live close to the border, to the very long border, that is, and it was nothing anybody wants to experience again. Trust me. This is the symbol of Nordic cooperation, the swan. Well known, I think. Come on. For the final stretch. So, border regions. That is what we're funneling down to here now. The European Association of Border Regions. We have cross-border committees. I work in one. We have 12 of them covering Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. Iceland is a bit far out in the ocean to have a cross-border committee, but we have 12 cross-border committees. The first one was founded way up north in '67, and the latest one in Jämtland and Trøndelag in '21, just a couple of years ago. And the thing is, what we do is we put the stuff that they make out in the Nordic Council of Ministers and Nordic Council and put that into work on the ground. And it's the local, municipal and regional politic framework and network that is actually put into action when we do something. So it's really hands-on, on-the-ground work. And our purpose is to actually make the Nordic vision come true. I work in one of them, it's called MidtSkandia. It's Västerbotten and the southern part of Nordland in Norway, Helgeland. So, sorry, there. The most integrated and sustainable region by 2030. That is our aim and our goal, and that's what we will be working for. And I think you might agree that with a history of the Nordic cooperation of the Nordic countries, maybe the timing might not be achievable, but it is. It's not far-fetched, it's totally realistic, because we've been doing things together for many, many, many years. And the thing is, to be able to do that, you need hygge, which is a Danish word for enjoying yourself. You need peace, and a small amount of welfare. Thank you.
Thank you, HP, for this passionate, powerful crash course into the Nordic cooperation. Everybody, please make sure to type your answers your questions, sorry, into Slido for the later debate session. Now it's for you, Cecilia. HP was into a brief history lesson. Your presentation will be more occupied on the present, and you will give us some insights into how you work at the Border Committee of Svinesund to unleash the promise and potential benefits of cross-border cooperation. Please.
Danke, Erik. Guten Morgen, sehr geehrte Damen und Herren. Vielen Dank für die Einladung zu Ihrer Konferenz. Entschuldigen Sie mir bitte, weil ich spreche nicht gut genug Deutsch, um die Rest meiner Rede in Deutsch zu sprechen. Entschuldigen Sie mich. So I will therefore continue in English. I saw you take off your headphones. I'm sorry. Aber gerne in die Kaffeepause spreche ich gern Deutsch mit Ihnen, wenn Sie einige Fragen zu mir haben. Yes. I am from the Svinesund Committee, and you see here on the photo this area, Svinesund, the sound, Sund, where the river that divides Sweden and Denmark runs out into Skagerrak. That is the name of our committee. And the border is very long, and my committee is in the south of the border. It's a very large parts of the area is densely populated, and in the south it becomes more and more dense, and we have around 4 million inhabitants between Gothenburg and Oslo. One also particular fact about the border region is, of course, that we have an additional administrative border in the fact that Norway is not part of the European Union. Norway is part of the EES or EEA, European Economic Space. But Norway is not part of the customs union, the European Customs Union. And that is something that we have to work around daily in our border regions. We as a committee, like many of our colleagues, we initiate and are responsible for projects to create job opportunities, strengthen businesses, and create sustainable development. We also bring to attention to national governments the issues that are important to us and what could help us prosper more. We bring it also to European level and the Nordic level, of course, these grievances that we have, and try to show what we can bring to the table, the potential that we are bringing every day, and how we can be even more prosperous and contribute to developing Europe. We are also, of course, a meeting place for local and regional politicians. We are in a strong industrial area, so we have chosen to focus on a few of those industries that we work with in our committee. We work with tourism, we work with the forestry industry, marine industries, and also to the right at the bottom what we call gränsmöjligheter, border possibilities, where we work regardless of sectors to, for example, organize seminars on how to do business in Norway, how to do business in Sweden. And we also work here to remove border obstacles. This here is a chart of trade between Sweden and Norway. The lighter blue at the top from the left-hand side is a Swedish export to Norway, and the darker line underneath is Norwegian exports to Sweden. And Norwegian exports is overtaking the Swedish exports the last few years. And this is not to show you the details, but to show you the trend, how our two countries are very interlinked and how trade is increasing. And our economies complement each other very well. It is also so that Norway's most important harbor is Gothenburg's harbor. It's the biggest harbor in Northern Europe, and the majority of the commodities exported from Norway pass through our region on the way down to the Gothenburg harbor on the E6. The rail capacity between Oslo and Gothenburg is very limited, and we also know that with the Fehmarn Belt tunnel, traffic will increase a lot, both on into Sweden up through Norway. So we have the trend of already increasing trade, and we know that traffic is going to increase even more. And now we're back, just to sum up this part, that Norway and Sweden are each other's most important trade partners. For Sweden, Norway is just as important as Germany when it comes to trade. So 5 million Norwegians equals 80 million Germans, so to say. And Norway accounts for most foreign direct investments in Sweden and vice versa. And here, on the photo of Svinesund, you have two bridges. The closest bridge is the bridge constructed 80 years ago. It was finished right before the Second World War. The second bridge behind is only 20 years old, and that is where the E6 passes, and that's where most of the trade between Sweden and Norway takes place. And I'm now going to show you a photo or a video of a very normal scene many afternoons on this bridge. If you could, I have some help maybe from Steve. Do I just press? Okay. So this video was filmed 1.5 years ago. This is from north to south, E6 going from Norway into Sweden. This is recurrent many afternoons in our region. The E6, one of the lanes is blocked for 2 to 3 kilometers. Lorries have to wait in queues 3 to 4 hours. So this is a physical border obstacle. And now at the end of the bridge, we arrived at the Swedish customs, where all the lorries have to pull in and show their papers. This is, of course, I think we can, here, this customs. So we can stop the film, maybe. This is, of course, as obvious border obstacles. We have traffic accidents, lots of CO2 emissions. Emergency service cooperation between Halden and Strömstad cannot run smoothly. Drivers have to follow driving times and rest periods according to EU legislation, but that is all skewed and doesn't work when you have to wait 2-3 hours in the queues. This, in the end, ends up as a lot of costs that ends up on consumers. And this is also on the main artery, which is so important for food supplies during crisis situations. So we have worked, in the Svinesund Committee to get the attention of our governments. We have had many members of parliament come to visit. And we have created a group where we have the customs authorities from Sweden and Norway, the transportation authorities from both countries, and both countries' association of lorry owners. And this is what you see sitting around the table. We have now managed to establish joint meetings once every 6 months, and things are happening. The one big change has been that the Swedish customs have reorganized. The responsible manager for the border crossing used to be placed up in the north of Sweden, could never be here and see the problems on the ground. They have now reorganized so that the Swedish customs now match the Norwegian customs organizations. And they are recruiting more personnel, they're shortening their training of the personnel to get personnel out more on the ground. Transportation authorities have also removed signs that prohibited lorries to overtake the queues if they had no goods. They can now drive on the left-hand side. However, I'm afraid to say that although we have now a group that is working, things have not changed so much on the ground yet. So here I think we need digitalization. Why should lorries stop at the border and walk into an office? And here I hope for the help to digitalize the European customs legislation that the Swedish authorities follow. Now moving on to another topic, the sea. I said that our region is bordering on the sea, and we have the Sea of Skagerrak. We have had many Interreg projects over the years in our region because you know Norway is famous for its salmon. Norway has a lot of aquaculture on the west coast in the North Sea. However, very little is happening in Sweden or in Norway in Skagerrak. So we see here a potential to develop businesses. We have helped small businesses that are starting up, algae production, for example. We have helped those enterprises that are very few, small, to come together across the border and become stronger. We've given them input from universities. And you hear this picture here, for those of you who love oysters. This is Edulis, the original oyster that has been extinct on the continent of Europe, but still grows in our part of Europe. And we also have University of Gothenburg scientists who, after 15 years, now finally can get larvae and make them survive and grow. So they're ready to export larvae down into the continent. And I know there have been talks with the Dogger Banks, for example, to implant the original oyster again. Right now, our committee has taken a new role when it comes to the sea and the marine area and industry. And that is we have become the secretariat of something called a Political Forum Skagerrak. That is a new regional network, only 2 years old, and bringing together regional politicians from not only Västra Götaland and Östfold, but also 4 other Norwegian regions bordering on this sea. And the forum is meant to exchange knowledge about what's happening in the different regions, because what happens in one region influences the other, since the sea is a common good. It's a shared sea. We also work to influence national and international policies, and to be a forum for dialogue, to bring together different stakeholders and prevent conflicts when it comes to the use of marine resources. Now I would like to change into a bit about what we do in the forestry sector. There's a lot of happening in the forestry industry, but we see potential to unleash even more growth, more job opportunities. And we have interviewed business leaders to get their perception of the obstacles that are impeding growth, impeding the cooperation between businesses in Sweden and Norway. And in our report, we identified 30 perceived border obstacles, and we are very grateful that we have been able to work together with AEBR and B Solutions to try to limit the impact of one of those obstacles, and that is the obstacle that building regulations in the Nordic countries are very unharmonized. In the 70s, like Håpi said, in the 70s, the Nordic cooperation was very strong, and they worked to harmonize building regulations. And after that, they have diverged again. And there is a Nordic Council task force committee working to harmonize it, but very little is happening. So thanks to cooperation with AEBR and B Solutions, we got an expert involved to help us chart a way forward. And we organized a seminar in Oslo in the spring of 2023 with the task force. And here is a video of one of the companies, Swedish companies, who participated in that Oslo seminar. And I think he somehow sums it up very clearly, how these border obstacles work and how it hampers businesses. So I hope you can watch this video, and there's a transcript in English underneath.
Hej, jag heter Lars Atterfors och jag är styrelseordförande i Invoco som producerar helt träbaserade väggar för större byggnader. Ja, det är en ganska komplex fråga, för det är väldigt många regler att hålla reda på, och sen ovanpå det kommer standarder. Så om man börjar med reglerna, så är mycket i att gå över en gräns ligger faktiskt på personnivå. De individerna måste vara registrerade och jobba flera dagar för att få sakerna i ordning, och sen regelbundet vidmakthålla det över tid. Så är det begränsat för hur lång tid man får jobba på andra sidan gränsen innan man blir dubbelbeskattad. Och det är många sådana här regler som gör att det komplicerar ett byggprojekt. För det är i regel så pass lång tid att man kanske till och med måste byta personal i halva tiden för att inte bryta mot reglerna. Sen har vi reglerna för teknik och trä i mitt fall då. De går ju att förstå, men de är olika, så det innebär ju att när man har ett projekt i Norge jämfört med ett i Sverige, så måste man jobba enligt de reglerna, och i vissa fall kanske till och med ha parallella material i sin produktion, för att på själva materialnivån så är en produkt godkänd och den andra inte, eller att det bara är måtten som skiljer det åt då. Och sammantaget så gör ju det att det behöver faktiskt att bli lite storlek och lite fokus på ett projekt för att det ska bli intressant och liksom ta det där steget. Och det tror jag är det största hindret. Inte varje liten regel, för den lär man sig över tid. Men att gå in på någonting nytt, om man inte bor nära gränsen som jag gör, det tror jag helt enkelt avskräcker, för att det är så mycket som man måste hålla ordning på. Och det finns hjälp att få, men en del av det kostar. Och även det, liksom, när man ska köra saker över gränsen, det blir en avgift varje gång, gör ju kanske att kalkylerna inte går ihop. De stora projekten går i regel bra, men säg många små resor, säg service och underhåll, det är omöjligt, det funkar inte. Utan då måste man ha en organisation på båda sidor gränsen, och då blir det för administrativt tungt för ett litet företag, och då gör man det inte. Så jag tror mycket av de här reglerna är sådana där som är avskräckande, liksom att det blir lite för krångligt, lite för komplicerat. Jättesvårt att peka på det skulle lösa alltihop, utan det är det här att det ska vara lätt att göra rätt. Då får vi till liksom ett bättre flöde över gränsen. En integrerad byggmarknad i Norden tror jag är en grundförutsättning för att vi ska kunna använda våra resurser ännu bättre. Alltså vi ligger lite olika konjunkturfaser, inte bara länder emellan, regioner emellan också. Och sen att kunna ha ett gemensamt arbete med att bygga upp. För jag tror bygga upp byggsystem. För jag tror i första rundan här nu sitter var och en som har varit duktiga i utvecklingen, de sitter på sina byggsystem och utvecklar projekten utifrån det. Men för att vi ska få ut full effekt av träbyggandet så tror jag vi måste kombinera metoder och system. Och där blir det mycket lättare om marknaden är större att jobba på. Så att man inte blir begränsad till en marknad som i vissa fall kan bli lite för liten för de här kombinationerna då.
Yes, well, thanks again to AEBR and B Solutions. We're very grateful for the cooperation, and we look forward to organizing yet another seminar in Copenhagen this time after the new year to keep on pushing to get this harmonization work speeded up. The last topic I want to just bring up and talk to you about before I finish is an Interreg project that we have ongoing in our region. And it is from after the pandemic, we have learned that we need to strengthen cooperation along the whole border so that the border committees and the people that live in the border areas and the companies that work here are listened to better by the national governments. And therefore, we have created something called the Reform Agenda for the border regions. And almost all of the 7 border committees along the Norwegian-Swedish border have signed up to this agenda so that we can speak with one common voice about what we need to make our regions grow better and prosper even more. Here you see, yes, HP, he touched upon it already, the pandemic. This is a border crossing in our region. It looked the same almost all along the border. And on the major crossings, there were police 681 days. There was police or military. It started by Norway closing the borders, but then Sweden closed the border as well. And this is a very dark recent history that we want to learn from and do better next time. And therefore we have organized seminars with politicians, and in May we came out with a book. This is a book. I have a few copies for those of you who can read Swedish or Norwegian, with 22 different authors, ambassadors, members of parliament, and also epidemiologists like Anders Tegnell or Preben Aavitsland from Norway. And they think about what happened and how next pandemic should be handled. And we would like to see a model of cooperation for governments and agencies, synchronized emergency plans, listen to border committees, listen to the grievances of the people who are affected by the decisions, safeguard workers' rights. People were left without salary, without any backup when they weren't allowed to go to work, strengthen civilian crisis management, and put aside resources for joint exercises. That is what we'd like to see. We have a lot of dialogue, but we have yet to see this materialize. So, finally, our website. There's some in English on our website. Please visit it and follow us in social media. And once again, thank you for inviting me. And I hope that you have take with you that there's a lot of business potential growth happening, lots of cooperation between companies in our border region, and a lot of social interaction. I didn't mention that, but people have friends, people are married across the border, you have your grandma across the border. And we can contribute so much more. We can have even more prosperous societies if we can have some help removing these border obstacles. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Cecilia. You're giving us another reminder that we still have these border obstacles that are preventing Europeans for taking full advantage of the open market. You also reminded us that we do have this excellent tool, the B Solutions initiative, that is really spot on to put a searchlight on these issues. So, thank you. Now, for Kikki and Madelene, you represent a relatively small team at the Border Service. I know you work incredibly hard to provide Norwegian and Swedish individuals and companies with tailor-made and rock-solid advice on how to cope with the many twists and tweaks that still persists as border obstacles between Sweden and Norway. So please tell us more. Tell us what are your aim. Tell us how you do it. Please.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inviting us here. It's very nice to be here. Our office is just a couple of hours away, so this is like home for us. As you said, we are a small office, a couple of hours away, Morokulien. It's between Charlottenberg and Kongsvinger. Our building is just on the border, so half our building is in Sweden and the other half is in Norway, and that's very unique. And we'll show you some pictures of that. We are total 8 persons working, both from Sweden and Norway, and we provide information in the whole border. So we're not for any specific region, the whole Swedish-Norwegian border. And we will just show you just a little movie from our office.
Yes, we want to welcome you to our office.
Feel like home? That was a sneak peek from our work. You are welcome anytime. We are open every day between 8 o'clock and 15:30, every day. Also on telephone and email.
Yeah, as Madelene told you, our office is just at the border. And here you can see our peace monument, one of a few in the world. We have a lot of war monuments in the world, but we only have a few peace monuments. And this is me, Madelene, and our colleagues. And It started as a joint labor market office through Interreg founding already in 1997, and Madelene was one of the persons starting this up. Our colleagues soon realized it's not just to put people in a bus and
ship them to work
in another country. They also had to inform about jobs and about upcoming pensions, taxes, social insurance, unemployment insurance, everything you need to know when you cross the border working. So Grensetjänsten was born, also Interreg, and Madelene will tell you a little about this later, in 2002. And we are a cross-border organization, and we work to make economic growth possible. And our target groups, we started a lot with individuals because the labor market was very hard in Sweden in 1997, and it was a good labor market in Norway. But since 10 years ago, we also work with companies, business that wants to make business over the border. We make information available for all of this. We have our website, and as Madelene told you, we have an open office every day for telephone, mails, and to come to our office. The staff are employed by various authorities in Norway and Sweden. We have different salaries. The Norwegians earn more than me and Madelene.
We are the losers here.
Yeah. We have different working hours, and we have different amount of vacation. But we're still friends. We're still working. I've been working there for 21 years now, so I think it's okay. We work on simplifying and solving border obstacles, and I'm coming back to that later.
As we've been talking a little about, we started as an Interreg early 1997, and only working with the people wanting to work in Norway. At that time, nobody was going from Norway to Sweden. Back in the 80s, it was a Norwegian coming to Sweden to work. But in the 90s, it was... and they were building here the airport, the Gardermoen, Oslo airport, and they needed thousands of people. So that's also one of the reasons why this project was started in 97. And as you said, from 2002, we now work with information as an information office, border service. So we've been changing a little during the years. And please write questions on Slido. We are happy to answer questions after this session is over.
And our founding today, we had this Interreg for 3 years, and since 2006, we are a permanent project, we can say. And the Norwegian Labour and Welfare Administration, together with the Swedish Public Employment Service, has total 4 persons at our office, and they are employed by these authorities. And then we have 4 people that are employed in, myself is employed by the County Administrative Board of Värmland. We are 3 persons there, and that is because we get money from our founders. And the largest one is the Nordic Council of Ministers, and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the Ministry of Labour and Social Affairs. We also have Innlandet County Council that are one of our founders, and we also have our small municipalities at the border. We don't have our own organizations number because we are so many together. But the municipalities, they are having our account, so we get the money and to have to our organization.
And here you can see some of our co-workers or who we cooperate with. And as you can see, the police is one of them, and they are actually now, with some of our help, building a police station just behind our building, half in Norway and half in Sweden. Very interesting. They are opening next year in May.
Yeah, but they are already working together since 2 years, and they have taken a lot of bad guys during this time.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a really great effect of working together, Norway and Sweden police and toll customs as well. And they are really working on to cooperate more and more. But it's, it's a lot of rules. Swedish police, they have rules, and Norwegian carrying guns and everything, and it's different. So it's a lot of work to get everything to work together, but very interesting. So maybe next year you have to come and visit this unique police station when they open.
Yes. And I put some brochures on your, so you can read it in English, all our collaborators, if you want.
Yes, and this is our 4 key areas that we work with. Information, labor market, border obstacles and simplification, that Kikki will talk more about soon, and coordination. And as we've already said, we get a lot of questions about taxes, how to open a bank account in the other country, how to get a social security number, pensions. Maybe you live in one country, but you have a child in the other country. Who is going to pay child support and how much? And if I move from one country to another, can I bring my car? Can I bring my dog to the other country? And all kinds of questions. And since we are located, most of our questions, we get them on telephone and email. But it's very common that people all around Sweden work in Norway, especially if they work offshore. It doesn't really matter where in Sweden you live, because you work for 2 weeks and you go home for 3 weeks. So people for across both Norway and Sweden is contacting us on a daily basis with all kinds of questions.
We can also, just because Cecilia was talking about the pandemic, and for almost 700 days we only spoke about rules, regulations. How do I get into? It was Norway the most, and they changed the rules once a week, twice a week, and
sometimes once or twice a day.
Yes. And there was no one to take care of these questions, so we just get it to our service offices in the Nordic to help people.
And it was crazy. We had like hundreds of phone calls every day.
Yeah.
And even the police called us almost every day. What's the rules today? What are we supposed to do? Because they were hard to keep on track of everything that happened.
So that was a crazy time.
And we don't want to experience that ever again, as you've said.
So I'm going to tell you a little about how we have been working and are working, and hopefully are going to work with obstacles and simplifications. As an information center, we used to örat mot marken, you say in Sweden. We listen to the ground, to the people that are crossing the border, and we get inputs when it's not working. So we call it that we are the ear to the ground. We meet people that get stuck between countries' regulations. They bump into problems, etc. And the Border Council, you see there, the second point there, started already 2002 when we started Grensetjänsten. And it has been a success to solve border obstacles during this time. The participants in the border are representing all the authorities, almost all you saw before, and organizations. So it's been a good arena to talk about the border obstacles. How can we solve them? What do we need to do? And it's still an arena for discussing border obstacles, and also an arena for networking. But in the start, when we started, it was a lot of obstacles. It was not easy, but quite easy to solve them. The obstacles that we are working with now are very hard to solve, and the countries don't want to change. They think that the regulations and laws in their own country is the best. But we work hard on it. So in 2014, we started the simplifications groups for individuals in Norway and Sweden. The Nordic Council of Ministry redefined what a border obstacle is. It must be a change in a law or the regulations, but we saw that it's still problems that need to be solved so you can get smooth over the border. So that is why we started this simplifications groups. And in these simplification groups, there are administrators at the authorities participating. We don't need to have the boss to say that we cannot solve this. So they are meeting the problems, and they can, in this group, if the tax office meets a problem, we can discuss it. And so one of the simplification we made was the tax form for foreign workers in Norway. It was really crazy. I think it's had over 40 points to fill in. And then we made an easy one that was only 10 points. And now I think it's about 14 points you need to instead. So it took us 2.5 years to get this form. But we did it. So that's one example of what we are working with. Then we have the Nordic Border Obstacle Council. There are persons appointed by the Nordic Cooperation ministers. And we at Grensetjänsten is working close to the Swedish and Norwegian member. And the Freedom of Movement database are coordinating of Nordic obstacles. When we bump into what we think is an obstacle, we report this to the Secretariat by the Nordic Council Minister in Copenhagen. And here you can see the other Nordic information service. And we work together tight with border obstacles and informations. So one of the things we are going next week, we are going to attend to the Nordic Council session in Reykjavik together with, and to make ourselves seen, and also what are the problems at the moment. And our border service and the other information service have no political governance.
Yes, and our Finnish words here is just the right way should be the easy way, as somebody said earlier. That's very important. And here's our website. We have some information in English, and then Norwegian and Swedish, of course. So,
So thank you very much for inviting us.
and please write questions.
Thanks a lot, Kikki and Madelene. You encourage us to ask questions, and for sure, you are the ones to give the answers. Now, Gro, as our Deputy County Mayor, Hanne Velure, stated yesterday in her welcome address, security, cooperation, and solidarity goes hand in hand. And as you know, with today, all the Nordic countries, members of the same North Atlantic Treaty organizations, as well as other recent issues, the terrain is been changing, the situation is different than it used to be. It's for your call, Gro, to give us some thoughts on how the Nordic Border Committees will navigate for the future. So please.
Thank you. Dear friends, and thank you, Erik, for your nice introduction. If you don't mind, I would supply you. I live in Trysil. I've been living here for over 30 years. I moved here with my husband and 2 children. And if you ask me today if that was the right way to do, I would say yes. And I can also say I live in the valley in a small village in the forest nearby the river, a very beautiful place. And I spend a lot of time up in this mountain in the winter, both cross-country and downhill. And in the summertime, we hike and we cycle quite a lot. So I will recommend you to spend your holiday and come back here another time. And for those of you that are going to Sälen tomorrow, you will see the southern part of this municipality. That's enough on me. Skal vi se. Here you see the map of the 12 Nordic cross-border committees from Greater Copenhagen in the south, which is between Greater Copenhagen area and Skåne, up to Nordkalotten, which is a committee between Sweden, Norway, and Finland. Nordkalotten, as Håpe said, is the oldest border committee, together with ARCO. ARCO is a small committee in the middle, down the brown area in Innlandet and Dalarna. They were established in 1967. The newest one is Fellesrådet, the red one in the middle of Norway. It's between Trøndelag, Härjedalen, and Jämtland. I represent the border committee Innlandet Dalarna, was established in 2012. As you see, there are quite different size on these committees. There are different geography, different organization, and also different way of working. But there are a lot of common features. Our activities are financed by contributions from the members of the Nordic Council of Ministers. We work on behalf of our member and the Nordic Council of Ministers. And as you know, Håpe and Cecilia said, the vision for the Nordic cooperation is to become the world's most sustainable and integrated region by 2030. We work quite similar. We initiate and implement important projects and contribute to growth and innovation from a sustainable perspective. The border committees take initiatives and build various networks and structures. I dare say that we are the only institutional organizations working with regional development across the borders. And as you see here on the slide, we are the arena for cross-border, both regional and local political networks and cooperation. And I heard several of you yesterday mention the importance between cooperation between the local and the regional. And I will also say it's important at the national level for this cooperation. We are also a focal point for organizations, universities, high schools, and also the local people in the border regions. And we also say that we represent multi-level political visions. That's also important. It's very important that we have the local politicians and the regional together with us. The cooperation and dialogue between the border committees have increased in recent years, especially the 3 last years. Do you agree, Cecilia and Hope? Yeah, that's good. Last year, we prepared this overview of the border cooperations and the committee's delivery, or may I say production, in relation to the Nordic vision. Why did we do this? We want to make visible to the outside world what we produce. I think it's some places a secret who we are and what we do. We don't like that, but I think it's some place like that. And we also want to cooperate between the committees to strengthen our internal cooperation. Therefore, we use quite a lot of time to make this view. This is categorized according to the 3 focus areas on the Nordic Cooperation Program. It's a green Nordic region, a competitive Nordic region, and a social sustainable Nordic region. Totally is nearly 200 different projects. Most projects in the green, that's not unusual. But I think that the activities and the project according to a social sustainable Nordic region will increase in the coming years. We have also categorized the project in 15 different areas, and you see that on the left-hand side on the slide. It's about planning, and I think also that common community and regional planning across the border is a project that more of the border committees will prioritize the coming years. Local population, tourist industry, civil preparedness, innovation, transport, infrastructure, talked about that yesterday. The marine environment, as Cecilia mentioned, forestry and agriculture, energy, culture and leisure is important, especially after the pandemic, to make and create tillit again. Competence supply, care and health, youth, reform agenda, as Cecilia named, and border barriers. And then you see on the right-hand side, it's how our projects are financed. The Nordic Council of Ministers give us together 1.1 million euro every year. Our own finance from our owners, members, is about 2.7 million euro. And the border committees run quite a lot of different and big projects. And the external financing to this project is about 1.9 million. And I think that hope means it's more than 1.9. That's true. So together we can say that our turnover is nearly 6 million euro for 2024. That's quite a lot. But we say, and we realize, and we heard yesterday, that Nordic cooperation is more important than ever. Both the geopolitical situation and also that Sweden and Finland is now member of NATO. We, the cross-border committees, are a well-functioning platform for both Nordic cooperation, but also cooperation between the different parts of the Nordic region. We wish to be more visible, both nationally and in a Nordic context, and I think that we best can achieve this through cooperation. As you see on the second slide, we vary in size and organization. Some of the committees are really small, and some are rather big, and we see already that some of the big committees cooperate with the smaller. We share experience, we share knowledge, and I think that through that way we can be much better, and we can also strengthen the Nordic relationship. And we also want to be a more interesting partner, both for the national level, but also for the Nordic Council of Ministers. We want to work smarter, we want to be more efficiently, and we also want to communicate more uniformly and effectively. And I think to do that, we have to build our knowledge. We have to make a plan for how we shall communicate. We'll have to use one voice up to the national level and also to the Nordic level. And we also want to be a preferred cooperation partner, both local, regional, national, and in the Nordic context. So we are now working on a 3-year project. The framework for the project is described, and now we work really hard to secure the funding for this project. So we have hope that we can succeed with this work during a few months. Yeah, I think so. So we want to create the world's most integrated and sustainable region in 2030 with a good cooperation between the Nordic Border Committees. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Gro. It's encouraging to see how you are now working the last few years to link up much better the 12 Nordic Border Committees to increase your efficiency, to increase your visibility, to increase your impact. So we will follow you closely. Now, dear friends, it's about time to have a look at some of your questions, but also perhaps Helmik, do you have the word cloud available? You just have a brief the word cloud. Do you have it? Okay, any surprises? Stability, tillit again, as Marit introduced yesterday, this word that goes 2 ways. Hygge, håper. We will bring, of course, this word cloud with us after today's session. So thank you for giving your input. Stig Helmik, could we go back to the question sites, and we could probably start at the top. Are there any major lessons to be learned for the rest of Europe from the Nordic cooperation? Ooh, that's not a small question. Anyone? Hope? Yeah, Cecilia, you could start, please.
No, I'd just like to say that I think that's very difficult to answer because I think there are lots of that we can learn from the rest of Europe. For example, when we are talking about the cross-border committees now, what Gro presented, that we want to work more closely together, all 12 of us, we've been talking about looking out to see outward from the Nordics into Europe and maybe even across to Canada and America to see are there other ways of working that we should learn from. So I think we'd like to learn from you.
Yes, I think that Cecilia is quite right about that. But I also think that there are a few things that are in the Nordic countries that could probably be the answer to why is the Nordic cooperation successful. We are all very advanced democracies. We have a large amount of freedom. We have stability in society for a long, maybe not as much in Sweden nowadays. There was a new bombing last night, I saw this morning. But, you know, there has been quite a few factors that we have in common in Nordic countries for a long, long time. So cooperation between unstable non-democracies with a blurry vision of the future might not be that successful, even if you use the right methods, if you get my drift.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, both of you. I think we move forward, and there is a couple of questions to the Border Service Officer, and I wouldn't be surprised if you got the numbers in your head. Let's try. How many questions do you get? Persons do you help each year?
Kikki?
I have it in my head.
Computer, yes.
We help about 16,000 individuals and companies every year, and it's about 80% individuals and 20% of this is companies that wants to make, and it's by telephone, email, and visiting our office, and we also are out on labor market.
Job fairs.
Yes. So it's and we are only 8 persons, and so yes, we help a lot of people.
Okay, thank you. For Gro, I think there's a question here, or maybe Cecilia and Hope can help out. But this is one that we meet often. How can the border committees become more visible? And Gro, I know you've been working with a communication plan, for example. So, do you have any clues to the annual conference?
As I said, I think it's important that the border committees speak, especially with one voice, if we want to come in contact with the national level or the Nordic level. It's not easy for them if MidtSkandia says something and Innlandet means another thing in the same question. So we have to be more coordinated, I think. You may.
I think you're right. Very much so. And I think it's both valid for the Swedish-Norwegian committees to address our 2 governments with one message, but also the 12 committees needs to have one voice to the Nordic level. Because some issues that we need support from concerns only 2 countries, but very often it concerns also the 5 governments in the whole of the Nordic countries.
Okay. Yeah.
I can just say that is how we are working as the border services in the Nordic countries. We've been working together with obstacles for 10 years, and together we are strong, and together we can bring things up. So it's a good way to go.
Okay, thank you. I'm aware we are a bit running out of time, so there will be, I think, 2 more questions, and we do it democratically, so we will ask those who are voted up. So first, and this is a concrete question, we like concrete issues in AEBR. Grensetjenesten, how do you manage to share personal information between 2 countries with regulations taking place?
We don't see each other, we don't see us as 2 countries. We are one community, and we share everything.
And in our collaborators, we have experts. That if we get a question that we cannot answer, we put this question to one expert in the tax office, and he helps us. And our websites are linked to all authorities. So that is how we can have the regulations and rules in one place, because we link to the authorities. And then it's always up to date also, the information.
But with the new GDPR laws, there are some problems sometimes. But we can usually help people without using like personal numbers. Okay. So we can come across that.
Okay, thanks. Final question. There is always someone who will bring up the elephant in the room. I'm impressed. Compliments, yes. But simple solution may be Norway joining the EU, question mark. Any plans, question mark, too simple, question mark. Who dares? Yes.
I do actually.
You're from Sweden. You can answer.
I'm an outsider, so I'm qualified to have an opinion on the question. It's a very good question, because Norway's been joining the European Union with different kinds of agreements for a very, very long time. And when you ask the question openly, like now, you will, from Norwegian politicians and also, well, highly placed officials, hear that, oh, that is not on the table in Norway right now. But when you go privately and talk to them, they say, well, it would be quite a good idea, actually. So I think that it's not on the table right now, because that's the official opinion. That's the policy. But that might change quite quickly. Sweden and Finland was not discussing becoming members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization until the 24th of February 2022. And in 2 months' time, the overall opinion, the polls in Sweden totally turned over. In 2 months' time. So beware, this might be on the table, and I will be the first one to really, really, really celebrate that if that were the case. Thank you so very much.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Hope. I think it was an excellent solution to have an outsider also this, so we don't have to. Before we leave the room, we prepared just very shortly some takeaway messages from the panel. So if I may, just briefly, Hope, please.
Thank you. I actually prepared a 1-minute talk on this, and I will skip that. Somebody yesterday said tillit spells the same back and forth, and it's actually not spelt the same way in Danish, that's a bit unfortunate. It's a D in the end in Danish, but I think that cooperation, whether it's Nordic or European or global or whatever, should never, ever start without trying to understand and create tillit. Because that's the foundation of democracy. If you don't trust the system, you will you will not contribute to the system, that is paying your taxes, right? And you will not obey the laws if you don't trust the law enforcement. So, tillit, dear friends. Go home and create tillit.
Well, my take from this, Erik, is that I hope you all go home and remember that there is a lot of business opportunities, a lot of business and trade going on between Sweden and Norway, and we could contribute even more to European growth if we have some help with digitalizing the European customs legislation that we'd like you to help us with. Thank you.
Okay. Kikki?
Yes, we would like you to take this, that our motto is to, when a customer phones and contacts us, they have one question, and then we say, should we answer your question, or should we give you the information that you need to know to cross the border safely? So it's very important to get information when you are crossing a border. So that is our motto, and that is very important.
Yeah, thank you. Gro?
The border committees are an important tool in the Nordic cooperation. Together with you and other partners, we aim to be the preferred partner in cross-border regional issues.
Okay, thank you. So, thanks for your patience. Thanks for your contributions. At 11 o'clock, there are workshops. There will be one workshop in this room on external borders, and there will be the other task force on culture and languages on the other side of the hall. But now it's coffee. Thank you.